Well, it's been a little while, but for good reason. You see, I haven't really had a good idea to do a video because I did a few videos on pretty normal topics and they did fine, but where my views really skyrocketed was where I was most angry and having a rant. And I mean, if I was covering Sonic content in the early 2010s, I'd be in a fucking mansion right now. But I haven't been able to just find that same hatred that I expressed in that classic Sonic video. You see, it's hard to hate Sonic at the moment. He's been on such a good run recently. Shadow Generations came out and it was fantastic. I loved every second of that game. And Sonic 3 came out. For a short review of it, I cried and it was beautiful. Sonic as a franchise has had a good track record recently, and I was thinking to myself, well, I don't really have anything to make a video on. But as I've been inactive from YouTube and scouring the internet, consuming some Sonic content slop, I've begun to notice something. Something that struck me down a little. And honestly, I think I've reignited that same hatred. You see, this year, Sonic 06 turns 19 years old. And it is officially, well, an old game. It's almost 20 years old. And when games become old, they grow a bit of a fan base. Do you guys see this? Do you guys actually see it? As someone who's been a Sonic fan my entire life, never did I ever think to see the day people would genuinely express love for Sonic 06. I never thought anything positive would ever be spoken of this game. If I went back in time and showed these screenshots to a Sonic fan, they would probably kill themselves on the spot. And for good reason. Back in the day, Sonic fans, 06 was the bane of everyone's existence. People would rather sacrifice their own mother than play that game. But here we are at a time where Sonic 06 is getting its praise online. Now, I'm sure you've seen the title of the video where I used the word overhated, and I use the term lightly because I in fact hate this game, like any sane person should. However, there are things I like about it, and I will go over those things. However, I will state now that the bad very much outweighs the good in this game. So, let's begin talking about why Sonic 06 fucking sucks. And I can't believe I'm making a video slandering 06 in the big 2025. But here we are. Now, just a disclaimer, I have beaten Sonic 06 in full, and I have every right to like the game. It was one of my first introductions to Sonic, having grown up with a PS3, and it's also the debut of my favourite character, Silver, and it's pretty much the only game he's playable. So, I'd say I'm qualified to speak on the subject. Sonic 06 released in, 2006, for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. The game launched to poor reception. Awful reception. Even going so far as to be called one of, if not, the worst video game of all time. Now when a claim like that is made, that's when I use the term overhated, because it's far from the worst game. Hell, it's not even the worst Sonic game. But it is a contender. Sonic 06 was a pretty fucking bold game. It was attempting to be like a fresh new look for Sonic. In fact, Sega was ballsy enough to just straight up call the game Sonic the Hedgehog. Imagine talking to someone when the game just came out. Hey, you played Sonic the Hedgehog yet? Yeah, I played Sonic the Hedgehog. And one of them's talking about fucking Sonic the Hedgehog from 1991, and then one of them's talking about Sonic the Hedgehog from 2006, and another person comes along and they're talking about Sonic the Hedgehog released for the Game Boy Advance, and another one comes out and they're talking about Sonic the Hedgehog released for mobile. Alright, let's talk about one of the lesser things wrong with the game, and that's its story. The game is an adventure-style game, much like Adventure 1 and 2, where every character kind of has their own story going on, that all eventually comes together for one final act. Now, I'm not going to go over the entire game's story, because there's a lot of little details on why it's bad, there's a lot of minor inconsistencies and writing flaws throughout the game, and that's been done into the ground on YouTube. But I will say a few things. Firstly, Shadow's story is pretty well written, and Silver's is also well written for the most part. Sonic's, however, isn't, because there is one thing wrong with it. I mean, there's a lot of little things, but there's one major thing wrong with it, and that's Elise, the human princess. Now, if you gave me a plot synopsis for Sonic 06 and I was reading it, I would definitely think it was a fan fiction written by a little girl. Because why is Elise, the human princess, the love interest for a cartoon blue hedgehog? I don't know what's worse, she's kissing a hedgehog or she's kissing a corpse. Now you might be thinking, well, if the other parts are well written for the most part, it can't be that bad, right? Wrong, because Elise is so major to the story. It's like an awfully written tumor on top of an already messy fucking plot. There are so many little things wrong with this story, but it's not just the story, alright? A lot of the characters have awful gameplay design. Like, Tails is fucking miserable. Why is his ability throwing dummy rings? That's fucking dumb. And why would we do the hunting things with Rouge again? Without the radar, why would they remove the fucking radar? Now the missions fucking suck. Like that one stupid mission where a guard tells you to find the captain, so you talk to all the fucking guards in the city, then you go back to find he was a fucking guard the whole fucking time! The save system fucking sucks. Even the hub world sucks. It's so bland. Half the time you have to run around aimlessly progressing the game. It's really fucking dumb. A lot of the time there isn't a clear designation on where to go. Half the time the game's just like, we'll decide when we want to progress, just keep running around. I can tell anyone commenting about 06 being their favourite game has either never played the game in their life and just watched the cutscenes on YouTube, or have played a popular fan project known as Project 06. More on that later. Because anyone who has played the game would know that 90% of the time, the game is so buggy it is genuinely unplayable. And the physics of the game are god awful, like horrendously bad, and the boss fights are some of the worst in gaming. Bad physics, bad design, bad controls lead to an atrocity known as the Silver boss fight, which is an absolute nightmare to play. I'd genuinely rather cut 100 individual holes in my penis with a boiling hot, rusty screwdriver and play 2 seconds of that boss fight, alright? Anyone who hasn't played that boss fight, play it and tell me you wouldn't rather do the screwdriver shit. Now, on top of an inconsistent and mostly bad story, really awful gameplay, Sega gives you the biggest fuck you ever. They throw in some of the most obnoxiously long loading screens in gaming history. And it's not just that they're long, they go extra obnoxious by making every single thing you do give you a fucking loading screen. Ugh! Now, all this makes it an objectively bad game. It's a fucked up, rushed, buggy mess with an inconsistent and flawed story. But as I said, there are some good things about the game. First of all, my favourite part is the phenomenally composed OST. More specifically, I really appreciate each theme reflecting their character. Sonic's His World. A well-played acoustic guitar intro on top of an orchestra that eventually evolves into a punk rock song with the remaining orchestra in the back.
He's a rocket and he's ready to go, 'cause now the countdown has started and he's ready to blow.
It perfectly reflects his attitude and also his heroic nature simultaneously. Shadow's All Hail Shadow is like an aggressive nu metal song. Which is fitting for Shadow, but I feel it's the weaker of the three. More could have been done with the lyrics to show Shadow, but it's still fantastic. And Silver's theme is probably my favourite. It's not my favourite sounding song, but with how it reflects the character, because it uses like a synth-based electronic song, which I think is perfect because, as Giorgio says,
why don't I use the synthesizer, which is the sound of the future.
And that perfectly encapsulates that Silver's from the future, with just his theme. There's plenty more genius and well-made tracks in the soundtrack, but I think those three are just really great examples of it. There's also the level design. As seen with Shadow Generations, a few of the levels in the game can translate especially well in a proper Sonic game. There's also the introduction of my favourite character, Silver, who honestly has a very well written backstory for the most part. All of these things are fantastic, and there are plenty of other great ideas thrown in the game that just sadly fall flat due to the inconsistent writing and rushed production. And yeah, there was rushed production. I mean, listen to this.
Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged methods. Head to the wave ocean, head to wave ocean. Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged methods. Head to wave ocean immediately.
That was left in the game? As I said before, there is an alternate way to play Sonic 06, and it's through something called Project 06. It's a non-official fan project set to make 06 an actually playable game with good physics and gameplay. Now, it doesn't fix the story flaws, but it definitely is a huge improvement to the game. It shows that 06 could have been an okay game had it been developed with care, but sadly it wasn't. Now, a lot of people will swear on their life that 06 is their favourite game, but we'll talk about Project 06, and while that's fair enough, I think Project 06 is fantastic. It's not official, you know, it's not Sonic 06. When you're talking about Sonic 06, you're talking about this dog shit game for the PS3. Now, if you want a more definitive and nitpicky answer as to why 06 fucking sucks, look at the other thousands of videos on YouTube that are just an hour long swearing that the 06 is the spawn of Satan, going into every little single detail, and honestly, I respect that, but I'm not bothered to do that research. I'm just here to rant about why 06 fucking sucks, and yes, it does, alright? It's an objectively bad game. I don't understand how it can be anyone's favorite, but if it is, if you genuinely enjoy 06 with all your heart, in all honesty, I'm jealous. There you have it. I gave my reasons as to why the game in recent years has become a bit overrated, but the game can also be cut some slack. Now that I've done my rant, will I return to making Sonic content? I can't promise anything. I'm sure I'll get an idea or two later down the line, but my videos might remain months apart again. I do really appreciate anyone who's stuck by and watched my videos. You guys are awesome, but subscribe will get numerous diseases. I don't make the rules by.
Okay, it's childish, can't be no homegirl dropping like the NASDAQ. Move white girls like this coat up my ass crack.